All right, welcome everyone. The hour being 7 p.m. on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. The Tooele City Council is meeting in a business meeting held at Tooele City Hall Council Chambers located at 90 North Main Street. We've noticed this on our public agenda, but we just want to remind everyone that we are no longer streaming on Facebook Live. We moved to YouTube for that. The link is in the agenda, and we've shared that on our Facebook page so people can get to the YouTube link. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please rise and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, which is a roll call. Councilwoman Manzione.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
Councilman Graff.
Present.
He's joining us by phone at the moment. And I'm Councilman Brady. I'm also present. Before we move on to item 3, I recognize that there's a youth group in attendance with us. Is this a young men's group is what I was told. Where are you from? What ward? All right, thank you. We're happy to have you here, and thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to move on to item 3. This is our public comment period. We do have several hearings and ordinances that will have public hearings as well. This is a general public comment period. The public's welcome to come up and make comments. We ask that you state your name, and we ask that you limit your time to 3 minutes or less. A lot of people ask questions during the public comment period. Typically, we'll bring it back to the council and then they can answer the questions or go over certain things. It's hard for us to hear a public comment and then answer it at that point. So we'll open up the public comment period, close it, and then it comes back to the council. So item 3 is to open up the public comment period. So the time is now the public, sorry.
And if you could also just sign my sign-in sheet there, I'd appreciate it. When you're done, that's okay. Thanks.
Thanks all.
All right, my name is Brent Lindstrom. I work with Leisure Villas, and was there anything else you needed me to mention other than my name? Okay. All right, well, I just kind of wanted to go over something. I know that you're probably not going to make a decision right this minute or anything like that, but I do kind of want to ask some of your advice and see where you would stand on this issue. So I'm currently developing the Country View Villas community. It's a senior community off of 1000 North. I saw actually something on the agenda for 1000 North. Actually, this looks like 200 West. We're around 200 East, so I don't know if that applies to us. That's probably someone else. But it looks like the similar sort of issue, kind of a fee in lieu of dealing with water rights, basically. So basically, we've invested millions of dollars, as you may know, in the senior community that we're developing. We're nearing completion of the finish of our first phase, and we'd like to begin work on our second phase. We've met every requirement that we need to do that, except for the conveyance of water rights. We have done a few things to try to get water rights. We can't find any water rights for any price in Tooele City. So we understand it's a very scarce commodity right now. We've tried to do a few things like changing our landscaping to more of a local scape sort of a deal to lower our landscaping needs and our water needs for that. But in our search to find water, we've come across shares of Middle Canyon Irrigation, and we're aware that at least one other development and the city uses Middle Canyon Irrigation for some of its water usage needs for landscaping and such. And so we were thinking that this would probably be a good compromise to use for our landscaping needs in our community. We are aware that the city code requires a conveyance of water rights for development, at least for the culinary usage, but it seems to us that it also makes provisions for using shares of a irrigation company such as Middle Canyon to landscape. And So we were hoping that something like that would work for our community at least, so we could use our water rights that we have dedicated to the city for our culinary needs, and then use shares of Middle Canyon Irrigation to supply our landscaping needs. This seems like a good compromise to us to move forward with our subdivision. Staff does not necessarily agree with that, and so that's why we have applied for a, what do we call it? Sorry, I don't know where basically a code interpretation. And administrative code interpretation, and I think we've had that in for about 3 weeks. And I don't know if that comes to you guys or if it's dealt more with staff, but in deciding that, we're hoping that you guys will consider just some of the situations that we're in right now without having much water available. And hopefully, as we move forward, I'd like to ask you if you know what you would do, or maybe have better suggestions for us. If Middle Canyon Irrigation isn't what would work best for you, then tell us what would work for you, or if you can work with staff to help kind of make that code interpretation allowable. So anyhow, the code that we're referencing is code as in section 7-26-4, paragraph 6. I'll let you guys look that up unless you want me to read that for you. But that's all I have. I'm just trying to find a way forward, and I'm hoping you guys can help me.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during this public comment period? Okay, seeing no one else come forward, I'm going to close the public comment period. And we'll move on to item 4, which is a public hearing on a petition for the Canyon Springs annexation of 61.16 acres at approximately 750 North Drew Bay Road by Howard Schmidt. This is presented by Jim Bolster, the Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council members. As you stated, this is a petition for annexation. Tonight, you are conducting your public hearing. You'll notice on your agenda, it is not listed for a decision, but only a public hearing. I'll get into this in a little bit, but the process for annexation is governed very strictly by state law. It is a very lengthy process of about 24 statutory steps. This is one along that process. It's towards the end, but it is not at the end, and so this is simply a step that you need to take in the review process in preparation for ultimately making a determination on whether or not to approve the petition for annexation. This is the subject property outlined in red in the center of your screen on the east side of Drew Bay Road, to the north of Smelter Road, which is the road at the very bottom of the image. And I'm not sure why the street names disappeared on me, so I apologize for that. But this image did have street names on it. But it's on the east side of Drew Bay Road, to the north of Smelter, and to the west of Erickson Road, which is the diagonal road just below the red triangle area. This is a snapshot of the annexation policy plan expansion area map. The reason why we're showing this to you is, as the council is aware, state law prohibits even the consideration of a petition for annexation unless an area is included in the council's adopted annexation policy plan expansion area map, as well as the considerations within the expansion area of the plan itself. This is Area K. It makes up almost the entirety of Area K. It is one of a number of potential areas of annexation that the council will consider according to your adopted annexation policy plan. Inclusion in one of these areas does not determine whether or not an annexation would be approved or even could be approved. It is simply an identification of areas by which the city would consider a petition. You still have the ultimate discretion of deciding whether or not the petition is right for the community or not. The land use map in of course, this area not currently being annexed is outside of the city. So it does not carry a land use designation. However, the properties within the city immediately adjacent to it are all identified as a medium-density residential land use, with the exception of the channel area, which you're seeing in green, which is designated with an open space designation. The medium-density residential land use category is identified to support our highest density single-family dwelling zones, typically our R17, R18, and R110 zones. The land use map is what one of the major considerations, as the council is aware, upon which ultimate zoning decisions are made. From that, the zoning map carries a similar categorization where it's not currently in the city. It does not carry a zoning designation today. By the city zoning map, it does carry a county zoning designation. But should the property ultimately be annexed, one of the decisions the council will have to make is an assignment of land use on the map you saw previously, and then ultimately zoning that you're seeing on this map. All of the properties adjacent to the subject property that are inside of the city have been assigned to the R17 residential zoning district, which is, of course, compliant with the land use map. This map here is just an outline of the property. This is the plat that would ultimately be signed and recorded, as well as reviewed by the Lieutenant Governor's office, should the petition be approved. And it would be the official declaration of the property that would be included within the city, again, if the petition for annexation is approved. This is a concept plan that's been provided by the applicant. It is, at this point, simply a concept plan, an idea of what would ultimately be proposed for development. What you're seeing on the screen has not changed from versions the council has seen previously, as this has been discussed. For the public's reference, this concept plan includes 172 single-family dwelling lots. So that's and they are all, I think with the exception of just a handful, they would all be compliant with the R18 zone, with just a couple of them falling just slightly below and would be more of an R17 zone requirement. But the vast majority of them would comply with the R18 zone or larger. By way of reference, I mentioned earlier this process is governed strictly by state code. It is Utah State Code Section 10-400, as well as their subsequent subsections. There is full discretion on the part of the council as far as a determination for approval or not for a petition of annexation. This is probably the consideration by which the council has the greatest amount of discretion to be utilized of any application that comes before you. This is a slide you've seen before. The considerations for annexation typically are a balancing of benefits and drawbacks, the proposed uses and development plan, which you saw just a moment ago in concept form. And then we also identify 7 studies that are at least to be looked at, and if the council sees need to have those prepared, that they are the ones that would be considered. The applicant has submitted studies for water, sewer, storm drain, transportation, as well as city impacts and taxation. You have received those. At previous meetings, you have reviewed those, as well as various responses and documentation that the staff has provided to you based on review of those documents. One of the key aspects and one of the reasons why you have the greatest discretion is because every petition is different, and the considerations of every petition for annexation are different. But generally an underlying rule and suggestion that staff makes and the administration makes with every request for a petition for annexation is an examination of the benefits that would come to the community from doing so. Very simply, again, this is a statutory step for you to hear from the public regarding this annexation. It has been noticed according to state code requirements through our city recorder's office. Very simply, that is the proposal before you this evening and the presentation for you, so that you can hear from the public and have an understanding as to what it is this application consists of. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions or comments from the council? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Prior to opening up the public comment period, we received a few emails I'm going to read into the public record. The first one is from Zion's Farm LLC in care of Tom L. Bazinas and Peter L. Bazinas. It's sent to Tooele County Local Boundary Commission, Tooele City Council, and Tooele City Recorder, 90 North Main Street, Tooele, Utah, 84074. Regarding comments concerning proposed annexation of the parcel on the east side of Drew Bay Road at approximately 750 North and contains 61.16 acres adjacent to the Carfork subdivision in Tooele City. My brother Pete L. Bazinas and I own Zion's Farm LLC on the east side of Tooele City, and our farm has about 750 acres. The farm has been in the Bazinas family for over 100 years. We would like to protest the above new annexation into Tooele City because of the following reasons. 1, we don't know where the water rights are coming from for this new project. Will new wells need to be dug near the parcel for the new project? We own 3 water wells, all within 2 miles of the new project. 2 of the wells in Spring Canyon were dug more than 20 years ago. Both wells' water tables levels have fallen 48 feet and the other 51 feet in 23 years. Tooele City has dug at least 3 new wells within 2 miles of this new project and our farm, all within the last 20 years, and know the underground water in Tooele is being depleted fast. Have any studies been conducted to determine the amount of water that is available? 2, we estimate that over 150 new homes could be built, which means a lot more traffic on Drew Bay Road. It already receives a lot. Most of Drew Bay Road is fine except for between Vine Street and Smelter Road. Drew Bay Road should be widened through that area in order to be safe for the golf carts, cars, and trucks, and to be able to handle even more traffic. Thank you for allowing us to express our opinion. If you have any questions, please contact Tom or Pete at the numbers below. Sincerely, and it's signed Tom L. Bazinas and Peter L. Bazinas. All right, the next letter says, Dear Council members, it is my understanding that under Utah Code 10-2-428, neither annexation nor boundary adjustments has an effect on the boundaries of most local districts or special service districts. In order for Tooele Valley Mosquito Abatement District to be removed from the proposed Tooele City annexations, the interested parties, Tooele Valley Mosquito Abatement District and Tooele City must follow the withdrawal provisions found in Utah Code 17B-1 Part 5. If Tooele City annexed portions of unincorporated Tooele Valley previously serviced by TVMAD, it does not mean that the service provided by the district is automatically withdrawn from that area. Tooele Valley Mosquito continues to service the areas in question regardless of annexation. There would be no change to Tooele Valley Mosquito Abatement District boundaries. Also, just because a portion of Tooele City is inside the district does not mean that the entire city would be part of the district. If Tooele City as a whole wants to become part of Tooele Valley Mosquito, they can. I'm concerned that the public in these proposed areas will not get the public health protection that they have been receiving. I hope the City Council will consider the public health issues concerning mosquitoes in these potential annexation areas. Thank you. Signed, Scott Bradshaw, District Manager, Tooele Valley Mosquito Abatement District. All right, next letter is dated September 7th, 2022. To Tooele City Council, 90 North Main Street, Tooele, Utah, 84074. John and Sherry Roberts, I'm not going to say their address. Members of the City Council, we, John and Sherry Roberts, are writing to formally oppose the annexation request proposed on the east side of Drew Bay Road at approximately 750 North, adjacent to the Carfork subdivision. We are the legal joint tenant property owners of the adjacent property at 841 Erickson Road. We believe this annexation will alienate our property and the other property owners south of the annexation site from the Pine Canyon community. The proposed annexation site creates an irregular property boundary between Tooele County and Tooele City, and there are other property locations that would be better for annexation that would not cause this discrepancy with boundary lines. The long-term city and county plan had the proposed area designated as RR5, which would allow a buffer between city, county, rural, and open space. That is important for a healthy and attractive living area for all city and county residents. Please consider rejecting the proposed annexation request. Signed, John C. Roberts and Sherry B. Roberts. All right, our next letter. We are longtime residents, 20-plus years in the Carfork neighborhood, and we are against the proposed annexation of the Canyon Springs housing development for 3 reasons. 1, higher water rates, 2, higher taxes, 3, more traffic, and many other reasons that would result in changes to our community and a lower quality of life. We chose to move to and live in Tooele because of the rural lifestyle and reasonable cost of living. We understand that many others are doing the same, but we feel that this particular development at this time would be much to the detriment of Tooele's long-term prosperity and charm. Our long-term success as a community depends on smart choices and resisting quick and easy changes without careful and thoughtful consideration. The annexation decision will have 3 disastrous consequences we can outline at this time. 1, higher water rates. Although water rights may have been acquired from Kennecott, this water was designated for Tooele City. Thus, Tooele will be required by law to acquire more water for city residents. While water is guaranteed to city residents, inasmuch as a city can guarantee such things as natural resources, the affordability of water is not guaranteed. Living in the West, I grew up with stories about the scarcity of water. It is hardly a new phenomenon, although the scarcity has been exacerbated in recent years. My grandmother, at age 8, used to guard an irrigation switch with a shotgun. She was entrusted with this duty and the shotgun because she was the smallest in the family and not much use for farm work. We understand that water is difficult to acquire, and the city will not be able to conjure it from thin air or overnight in some paperwork exercise. Suitable drilling sites will need to be discovered. The cost of a completed well will be in the neighborhood of $4+ million based on the previous cost of wells that were drilled for water. Then, after a new well is completed, the water must be piped into Tooele. A new treatment plant will also be required at additional cost and time. This process could take years to fund and complete. You may be aware that Salt Lake City is working on a 15% increase in water rates for 2023 after an 8% increase in 2022. And current law caps water rate increases to 10% per year for the next 10 to 15 years. I suspect that will change for the worse. Tooele residents are already being asked to ration water and sacrifice their landscaping. Before we heard of this plan, we had already made plans to remove our front and back lawns. We expect to complete the project not later than next year. We cannot condone the irresponsible expansion of our community without a more complete and satisfactory plan for water. 2, higher taxes. Assuming the new development adds 170 houses, we can conservatively assume a corresponding increase in city services required: fire, police, aging services, sewer, garbage, etc. We can also assume a corresponding increase in the number of children in our schools. Can Middle Canyon Elementary be expected to absorb 170 more kids without a further decrease in the quality of education being offered our children? The school board proposed a much-needed increase to improve the quality of education in our community. It was rejected because of public sentiment at a hearing in this very room on August 9th. We cannot continue to further exacerbate this problem when the community is clearly unable or unwilling to shoulder the burden. 3, more traffic. According to the Utah Department of Public Safety, accidents doubled in Tooele in 2021, with 794 involving property, 436 injuries, and 17 people dead. Our current roads are not designed for the traffic that is currently commuting to Salt Lake City via Drew Bay, State Road 36, and I-80, the only viable commuting route for the 50% of our community that commutes. Adding another 170 cars, 1 per house, to this commute each morning and evening is impractical and will add to these complaints, incidents such as road rage, angry drivers, and the associated emergency response requirements. We are putting our citizens at risk by irresponsibly adding more traffic to an already overloaded system. What does the city gain from this proposed annexation? Surely, our respected city council members and neighbors are not unfamiliar with any of the facts we've presented here. Annexation should be a benefit to the community. We must therefore ask, what is the benefit to our community other than the favor of a wealthy developer? That's from John Williams. All right, last one. Residents' concerns, questions, and opposition, September 6, 2022, to new subdivision. Water, these are bullet points. So water, next bullet point, where is all the water coming from? Bullet point, does our water supply increase proportionately with growth? Bullet point, this does not seem to be the case when we are asked to replace lawns with rocks. Next bullet point, congestion/privacy. Bullet point underneath, loss of privacy. Bullet point, crime. Bullet point underneath, the value of our property will go down. Next bullet point is traffic. bullet point underneath, increased traffic will create more exhaust and pollution and threaten citizens' health. Next bullet point, litter will increase. Next bullet point says other, or bullet point, more people than we should have in our country lifestyle. Respectfully submitted by Lyndon Greenhall and Dean Lavender. All right, so those have been read into the public record, and then the council has received a copy of those. Those will be in the minutes of this meeting as well. We'll now turn the time over to the public. This is a public hearing on the annexation. Just as I stated previously, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. You state your name, and then you sign the paper, and then we'll turn the time back over to the council after the public comment period. All right, the time is now the public's.
My name is Valerie Peterson. I live in the Car Fork area. And we had a gentleman come by our house a couple weeks ago talking about the new subdivision and showing us the plat, the layout of it. Questions we had was regarding getting the police department and the teachers being lured out here to Tooele. He commented that they were going to donate $250,000 to the parks, which would be only used for the park, Glen Acres. You know, I've seen money be put in a pile that's supposed to go to a specific area, and then it ends up being put in a slush fund. That's a concern that I have regarding that. The next thing was with the police department, and I can't imagine that we're going to have that many more people. I mean, these are supposed to be 3-car garages. So you're at least going to have 2 cars. You're probably going to have over 400 new people moved in there. Of that, last week I checked with the Middle Canyon Elementary. They have 350 students as of this week. In the classrooms right now, there are 25 to 29 students. To me, that's a lot. They also indicated that they were not responsible for the traffic. Fixing the roads, making them wider for us, and what, you know, maybe putting a light in. That falls on the states. So as far as bringing that up, I was told we don't have anything to do with that. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Bresnahan, and I am a resident in the Car Fork subdivision. My wife and I moved here just over 4 years ago. The only thing I can say is that we're sorry we didn't move here a lot sooner. We have thoroughly been pleased with Tooele since we came. And I would say we purchased an existing home. We value very much the rural environment that we found. And we had many friends trying to get us to move here for a long time. I'm sorry we didn't do it sooner. That said, I would like to address the water question. I think that's very prominent, as we've heard tonight. I took it upon myself to go get a gauge to measure PSI, and got instructed on how to do that from a plumber friend, and used my outside faucet to measure, and our house was 40 PSI, which I understand is very low, and we suspected that already. I went around to my neighbors and asked who would like to have theirs checked, and quite a few allowed me to check their homes. And the ones around me were all right about the same at 40. It should be around 60. I did speak to members of the fire department, and they indicated off the record that the water pressure was sufficient to fight a fire. And their response to my question was if there were ever 2 homes burning in the same area at the same time, they wouldn't be able to handle it with the water situation. And it looks like water is becoming a greater and greater difficulty. We sacrifice, as do a lot of our neighbors. We have been flipping our strip. We have completely removed everything from our backyard and are turning that into a local scape and doing all that we can to reduce the amount of water that we use. And I see a lot of my neighbors doing the same sort of thing, and we have a lot of brown lawns in our neighborhood, and you can see that there's plenty of evidence of people who are trying to do their part. And we're concerned about what it might be in the future. So we're concerned about water, we're concerned about fire safety, and I would also comment that Tooele seems to have a great deal of land that is already within the Tooele boundaries, and it is Tooele city land. And so it would seem to me that considering development in the city ought to have a priority to develop on land that is already in the boundaries of Tooele, rather than bringing something new in. And I am a businessman. I understand business and what a developer goes through. I have some prior experience in a similar kind of a role. I was a member of the state legislature before moving to Tooele. And I have absolutely no political aspirations whatsoever, so you have no fears in that regard. I learned my lesson and ran away. But I would say that there are many who would try to influence because there's money to be made. And I appreciate that greatly because I'm a businessman. The last time I was in this room, I was making a movie. And I'm grateful for Tooele's cooperation to help me make that movie. More are coming. My suggestion is that when a business person purchases land, they know what the situation is with that land as they purchase it. And so the owners of the land have taken a risk, and I don't think that because they have the land, they should be guaranteed the right to impose a large development on the city. And there comes the question that has been asked previously. What is the benefit to Tooele? What will this annexation do to benefit our community, to make it better? I would also point out that I sit in my backyard. My backyard faces the land that's in question. And we sit out on our patio, and we're able to observe deer. I was having my breakfast and looking out the kitchen window, and there was a fox with her babies earlier in the spring. So there's wildlife that occupies that land very, very frequently. And we were thrilled this year. I've posted pictures and excited to show the baby eagle that landed right behind our house on that land. And we have been watching and seeing the two golden eagles circling and flying around. That field is a source of food for those eagles. And so we need to take into consideration what is the impact on wildlife when man imposes himself on land like that. And so I appreciate you taking time to hear me, appreciate your service to our community, and I hope that the owners of the land will find a way to pursue their endeavors in some other way. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Scott Peterson. I also live with my backyard towards the parcel that they want to develop. The way it's laid out for the development, half of that development is going to be driving and then going into Car Fork before it goes down to Drew Bay, just because they will not want to go further south before they turn over. So it's going to be more of a traffic mess to our area. The other part is what he said is, in 2007, 2008, housing market crashed. The stock market has crashed before. Just because you buy the land is not a guarantee that you're going to be successful in it. It's a speculation, and most of the time you are, but not always. And then also with the people that are going to be going, the students going to the elementary schools and the junior highs, you're going to have some more schools built someplace. We had a gentleman come by, and he said that he's going to be putting so much money towards parks and something else, and he kind of gave the impression that if he doesn't get his way this time, he's going to just throw up his hands and go through the county and make it, I guess, 5-acre ranchettes is what my impression was. But he's getting tired of dealing with you folks. And I don't think it ought to be on bribes either. I mean, or threats. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Roberts. So I'm the property owner adjacent to this that still is in Pine Canyon. So, and I don't know, do you have the map in front of you to look at the property boundaries? How that is separated out? It's kind of almost so Tula City's here, county's here, and then there's this little bit of, make the map bigger so you can see the part that's county.
It's a static.
Okay, I'm sorry. So only the piece that's yellow that you're seeing, the 850 North, that little subdivision is Tooele City. Everything around that is still county, including the part that's proposed to be annexation. So we own the property that is immediately next to, adjacent to both of those. So not only are you're alienating us from Pine Canyon, where we moved 28 years ago, we own a farm there, we grow hay, we have horses, we have chickens, we have bees, those things, and you're now going to separate us, and we're going to be separated all around by city, and you're losing kind of that rural feel. And I think part of it, you've heard several people say they move here because they want both. So consider keeping part of us rural. What are you going to do when all the farms are gone? I mean, you're losing some future possibilities. You've seen things happen with COVID. What happened with the supply chain? Don't remove the places that you could possibly use in the future for other things. There's other places, we believe, in the city limits that could be housing developments. Don't give away some of the rural property that is becoming very limited. And when you have some time, look at the map, because it's a very irregular property line, and you're just making it worse by including this piece. And yeah, then I should just give up my, lifestyle as well. So, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Just make sure you sign the paper. All right, is there anyone else who would like to come forward and make a public comment? Okay, seeing no one else come forward, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we'll bring the time back to the council. Anyone from the council want to make any comments? So I just want to clarify a few things. This annexation is not something that's been considered lightly. It's a discussion item that we've had for the past year and a half. We've asked the developer, we've gone back and forth requesting traffic studies and the impact to our sewer system. So it is something that I feel like has been studied in depth. There's been a lot of questions about the contribution. So I'll briefly explain my understanding of the contribution. So the developers agreed that rather than put a park in this specific subdivision, that they would build a trail system. That's the orange line that was on that plat that they, I don't know if you can put that back up, but there's a trail. So that orange line would be a trail that the developer would pay for, and then they would contribute $250,000. Our plan is to use that at England Acres, but the agreement does say that the city would have the discretion to use that for parks. It would be used for parks. And then there would be an additional contribution of $250,000, which is still being discussed. The initial plan was to have that go towards affordable housing in our community. So that would either be contributed to the Tooele County Housing Authority, or there's discussion of it being contributed to Tooele City to be used for affordable housing in our community. I heard a lot of questions about water. The developer they bought rights to water that if this is annexed in, they could use that in this subdivision because it would be Tooele City after that. We do have a water master plan that I think it was in the last year or two that we updated our water master plan to give us an idea of the growth that we'll have in our community and where we're going to get water sources. So we are aware of the water situation. I think just the last 2 years has really brought to light the current water situation that we're in the state and in the whole entire western United States, so not just Tooele. Traffic was brought up several times. To me, this is a natural annexation for Tooele City. If there wasn't that other subdivision to the north, I think we could have the argument that, yeah, we're annexing in an island or a piece. But with that property to the north, I feel like this is a natural fit. And that's how I think it benefits the community, is that it's a natural fit. They provide a trail. They'll help pay for parks and affordable housing in our community. And then I come from a large family. There's 8 kids in my family. I'm the third of 8. And my siblings cannot find anywhere to live in our community, affordable living. So to me, this is a subdivision that's a move-up area where someone moves, let's say I move out of my house and I buy one of these, and that opens up my house for someone who's starting out a more affordable house. Then I've been told that these will be a move-up, 3-car garage, a little bit higher-end house. So that's my comments. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that or correct me on anything. Please do.
So I have some thoughts I just wanted to share, and I've been mulling over this for quite some time. I think we're maybe a year into this. I'm not sure. It's been a long time. It's felt like a long time. I'm not from Tooele. I didn't grow up here. I didn't have that pleasure. But one of my introductions to Carfort was when I was running for office. I walked every single street, and I appreciate that neighborhood and the pride that they have, that you have in your neighborhood, and I appreciate that. And what I weighed when looking at this, and my decision was, is it a natural fit? Does it fit? And the answer to that is yes, it is next to this. And some of the pros that I noted, it does bring in higher-end homes. There is a contribution of $250 for parks to affordable housing. It connects existing neighborhoods, the existing neighborhood. The cons that I noted is what's been mentioned earlier today, the buffer zone. We're looking at the county versus the city, and we address this when we're looking at building high density in rural and residential areas. Do we have an appropriate buffer so it doesn't go from one to another? And my understanding is that area surrounding it is more rural, and we are losing that buffer to a degree. Water, all of us are concerned about water. I'm concerned about water. Why? Because every time we open up the newspaper or listen to the news, we hear about cities running out of water. It's not this theoretical issue. It's there, it's here, it's now. And that's concerning, and especially when it comes to our safety. One of the biggest cons for me is infill. And when I say infill, what that means is there are places in our city that are empty. And we are looking to annex in an additional property when we have blank spaces, for the lack of a better term, in our city that needs to be filled out. Now, why is that important to me? Not only because I want to see our city filled out within our existing geographic area, but for public safety, when we're looking at spending a lot of money trying to figure out how we're going to manage where our firefighters go, if we can put houses in our existing city, it's easier to manage than annexing in additional property. That's a concern of mine. How are the firefighters going to get there in time if we're expanding the boundaries? They are confined by physics. They can only go so fast and so far, and we only have so many of them, and I'm grateful for our recent addition. Other issues are the cost of building the infrastructure to get water, sewer. How's that going to work? It's, in my calculation, and I will admit I'm an idiot, I am not that smart. Most of you are smarter than me, but it didn't add up. This is not something that we walk away cost positive. Infrastructure never makes us money, ever. I've never seen that happen. And this is not a money-making proposal, and it says in the Canyon Springs annexation, that can't be the sole purpose. We cannot annex for the sole purpose of acquiring municipal revenue, but it has to be a consideration. We cannot burden our taxpayers by saying we're going to annex knowing it's going to cost us more money, and then the next year, is it any surprise if our taxes raise? That's part of the consideration. Finally, the two last points is the lack of green space, and I appreciate these developers contributing and being creative. $250,000 toward the park, that's creative. I don't think I've ever seen that in this sort of fashion, and to affordable housing. But I want to say, as a member of this city council, our commitment to affordable housing is more than words. We've worked with an administration to dedicate at least $800,000 toward affordable housing, not in word, but in actual deed. Does $250,000 get us there? I don't know, but I don't like the ambiguity of we don't know how that's going to be spent. Ambiguity breeds future confusion and regret. I can't agree unless we all agree where the money's going to go. And I can't answer that question today, as per our conversation of the city council earlier today. I can't agree unless we have it locked down, because I have to look at all of you and say, this is what we did. And I don't know that answer. My final point is green space. I've got kids. Kids love open areas. Kids need open areas. And the comment made by somebody earlier, maybe it was one of the letters, very well articulated. Kids need to be able to go somewhere. Councilman McCall mentioned this. I don't want them running across the street. We don't have time as parents to always take our kids to the park, and to take them from this area to England Acres. That takes a lot of time. I don't want kids running across what will be more congestion any way you dice it. I don't want that. Carport, there isn't a lot of green space there to begin with, and we're making less by taking away this open space. And I'm not saying kids are running around an open field, but green space is important. When we're adding this, and again, I think it's a well-planned, well-thought-out development, but I am not there. For these reasons stated, I don't think that the pros outweigh the cons, and for that reason, I am not in support of this.
All right, any other comments? So I've closed the public comment period. There's a public hearing on the next one. No, the next item, so. So the developers here tonight, they've asked to take a few minutes and speak. So I'm going to turn the time over to the developer. He'll state his name into the mic.
Hi, my name's Howard Schmidt, and I represent the developers on this team. There's several of us involved in it. And thank you for your time and for the thoughtful consideration on this. We appreciate that very much. Just to address the old Lincoln Highway through there, that is a UDOT right-of-way that it's 100 feet wide. It's been there a long time. It's essentially abandoned by UDOT. We've contacted them, and they are agreeable to deed that to a municipality, and we, according to our development agreement, we're going to work with the county on that. The county's excited to make that part of their trail structure. So I think that is a huge plus for the community, and we're excited about that. Addressing water, it truly is an issue, and that's one of the concerns we had with, do we add another park here that needs to be irrigated? You'll notice along Drew Bay Road, those are going to be our detention ponds, and our goal on that is to make them very economical on water, not use a lot of water, but make them attractive so that along Drew Bay Road, you've got a beautiful streetscape there. That's going to be our detention ponds as well. We just did one over on in Prosperity subdivision, and I don't know how many of you have had a chance to see it, but it's a pretty neat little detention pond that we made useful with some cornhole, permanent cornhole things, and I think it's pretty nice. We're really proud of it. We're excited to do this development. We think it's a plus for the city, and we are at your mercy to annex this in. We know it's not your obligation to do so, but we feel like we've met with many of you enough to understand what we can contribute that we think will be helpful, and we feel really good about it. And appreciate those who have commented and their comments. We really, I guess one other thing, people are concerned about fire and so forth, and I know that recently there was a fire just on the other side of Carfork that kicked off, and we've actually been trying to knock weeds down and keep a strip around the property here so that we would protect your houses as from danger that are in Carfork. But in reality, that's difficult to do if you get a big fire, and in some ways this would create quite a important buffer, I think, for a fire zone for people in Carfork subdivision. We appreciate your consideration and your time, and hope you'll consider this with a positive vote. Thank you.
All right, so this is not an item that we're voting on tonight. It'll come back in 2 weeks. It was just a public hearing to hear the public's input. So we'll move on to item 5, which is a public hearing and motion on ordinance 2022-33, an ordinance of Tooele City amending the Tooele City zoning map to reassign approximately 9.12 acres located at approximately 800 North, 100 East from the MR25 multifamily residential zoning district to the MR20 multifamily residential zoning district. This is presented by Jim Bolster, the Community Development Director.
Thank you. This is an item that is largely housekeeping in nature, which is atypical for zoning map amendments, as the council is aware. Just for some background, this project and this property was rezoned to the MR25 a couple of years ago as it was in the process of development, and they had opportunity to include some additional development within the property, but it necessitated a little higher zoning designation, and so it was granted an MR25 zoning designation a couple of years ago. As the council is also aware, just a couple of meetings ago, I believe it was the beginning of July, the council approved a zoning map amendment after a great deal of study and discussion amongst the council and the planning commission that actually eliminated the MR25 zone in favor of the MR20 zone. What that did is it left this piece of property as the only one in Tooele City assigned that MR25 zone without a legal zoning designation, and more importantly, the existing development within that zone, which had been compliant, was now non-conforming to the terms of the city code. And so as a matter of housekeeping, we need to correct that and place them back into a conforming status. So that's a little bit of the background as to why this is coming to you. The subject property is on the east side of 100 East, about 800 North. This is directly to the rear of Stedman's Recreation and the other businesses, Victor's Tires and those that are on Main Street directly to the west. It's an existing apartment complex known as the Legacy Apartments. The land use for this property is identified as high-density residential, as is the existing apartment complex to the south and properties to the northeast, which is where the Country View Villas development that you heard about earlier this evening in public comment is being constructed. To the west along Main Street on SR 36 is a regional commercial designation, and then this map actually has an error on it. The yellow area to the southeast identifies high-density residential. That's actually medium-density residential, so it is a single-family area. So my apologies for that, and I'll get this map corrected. It's actually a medium-density area, not high-density, for that yellow area in the lower right-hand corner. The current zoning map, as I mentioned, technically it's still MR25, but where MR25 doesn't exist, it can't be MR25. And so the proposal is, you may not have noticed a big change, but it's simply in that number below the word subject property, changing from 25 to 20. And so this is what would be proposed. We've gone back through, in fact, as a part of the discussion regarding the text amendment in July, to create the MR20 and get rid of the MR25 zone, knowing that this property would need to be reassigned. We went back into the records and calculated the density that was created after the MR25 was assigned to it, and the density is just under the allowance for MR20, so it would be fully compliant. It's approximately 19 point something. But it would be within the regulations of the MR20 zone and would be allow the uses here to remain in their compliant state that they have been in since being assigned the MR25 zone. That's the nature of this application. The Planning Commission has reviewed this, held their own public hearing, and forwarded a unanimous positive recommendation for your consideration this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions from the council?
This seems like the right thing to do since we don't have a 25 anymore.
Yeah.
All right, this is a public hearing as well, so I will open the time up to the public. Same rules, state your name, 3 minutes or less, sign the paper. All right, seeing no one come forward from the public, we will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, since I apparently like to reduce density all the time, I would like to move the approval of ordinance 2022-33, amending the Tooele City zoning map to reassign approximately 9.12 acres located at approximately 100 North and 100 East from the MR25 multifamily residential zoning district to the MR20 multifamily residential zoning district.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilwoman Manzio and a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And Councilman Brady, I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Moving on to item 6 is a public hearing and motion on ordinance 2022-34, an ordinance of the Tooele City Council vacating a dedicated public utility easement on Lot 5 of the Smart subdivision, presented by Jim Bolser.
Thank you. As the council has seen a couple of times of late, including I believe at your last meeting, when subdivisions are approved, there are easements that are included on each lot around the boundaries of those lots, known as public utility easements. And their purpose is to have an area designated where certain utilities are allowed to locate to provide service to each of those lots. In certain instances, in fact, a number of instances, those utility easements are not utilized. And so there is a process outlined in the state code by which the approving body, which in Tooele City is the city council, can then review requests to remove those easements or a portion of them, and thereby removing the restrictions that those easements may present on that strip of land around the boundary of a piece of property. In this case, we are dealing with a non-residential property, which the ones you have seen have typically been residential. The subject property is outlined in red on the center of your screen, just on the north side of the Union Pacific Railroad corridor to the east of Main Street. This would be a piece of property if you're traveling north on Main Street, coming down off the viaduct towards the hospital, it would be off to your right. and probably one that you don't necessarily recognize because you're probably still pretty high up on the overpass there. But it's off of 2000 North on the east side of Maine. There's a little cul-de-sac that comes off of that with some industrial uses there that have been there for quite a number of years. That little cul-de-sac is known as Progress Way. This is the subject property is on the east side of Progress Way down towards the end of that little cul-de-sac. This is the recorded plat of the Smart subdivision. For the demonstration of the drawing, the actual layout and drawing is rotated 90 degrees, so north is to the right side of your screen for display purposes. And this is actually the subdivision that was recorded in July of 1990. So this plat looks a little bit different than the ones you typically see now or are more accustomed to. But this is a recorded plat from 1990. The subject property is outlined in red. It is Lot 5, as I mentioned, of the Smart subdivision. It backs up to the railroad corridor. And in fact, the easement in question being requested for vacation, I've identified in yellow, runs right along that Union Pacific corridor, that back property line. The applicant, as is required, has provided letters of clearance from the various utility companies that would have a right to locate facilities within that easement, including the Tooele City Public Works Department for water and sewer utilities, indicating that there are no facilities in there and they are amenable to your action to vacate this easement. Per state requirements and process, this does require a public hearing, but it only comes to you, and so this is your review of this application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions or comments?
What are they using it for, do you know?
My understanding is they would like to locate an accessory building to their operation, kind of down towards the point at the bottom of the screen, down in that corner, but there is a utilized easement along that if you look at the line that kind of runs towards the upper right-hand corner on this drawing, that easement does in fact have facilities in there, so they're going to stay off of that, but they would like to, my understanding is they'd like to locate an accessory structure for their operation back towards that back property line.
All right, thank you. As Jim mentioned, this is a public hearing, so we will open up the time to the public. All right, seeing no one run forward, we will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve ordinance 2022-34, an ordinance of the Tooele City Council vacating a dedicated public utility easement on Lot 5 of the Smart subdivision.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilman Hanson, a second from Councilwoman Manzione. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Item 7 is Resolution 2022-76, a resolution of the Tooele City Council acknowledging the mayor's appointment of John Proctor to the Planning Commission, presented by Debbie Nguyen, the mayor.
Thank you, Council. This resolution is just being brought to you to acknowledge my recent appointment of John Proctor to the Planning Commission. John is a lifelong resident of Tooele. I did have 16 people apply for this position. It's volunteer, and I was thrilled to see them all. I interviewed 6, and like I say, John has been watching the meetings, paying attention to what is going on. He's very interested in serving, and I have appointed him to finish the term of Nate Thomas. Nate did a great job for us, but he has taken another volunteer position in our community, and he's not able to fulfill the rest of his term, which will expire on December 31st of 2023.
All right, any questions or comments from the council? I will entertain a motion.
As a former member of Tooele City Planning Commission, I would propose that we approve Resolution 2022-76, a resolution of Tooele City Council acknowledging the mayor's appointment of John Proctor to the Planning Commission.
Second.
All right, a motion from Councilman Graff, second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye.
Thank you so
Passes
much.
5-0. Thank you. Item 8 is Resolution 2022-77, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with Smith and Loveless, Inc. for the purchase of grit removal equipment at the Tooele City Water Reclamation Facility, presented by Paul Hansen, the city engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I'd like to introduce both this resolution and the following, and then go into the actual items. A short time back, the City Council authorized staff to begin design of an expanded facility at the city's water reclamation facility for the pre-treatment of waste as it first comes into the reclamation plant, and we have retained JUB engineers to do that. They're at a stage in the design now of that new facility where we need to purchase certain equipment that is key and instrumental in treating the waste. This first item, Resolution 2022-77, is for the purchase of the grit removal equipment. With this equipment on purchase, our design team can then work with the manufacturer and actually design the facility around the equipment to make it most efficient in use. JUB assisted in putting the project out for bids. Smith & Loveless was the lowest responsive bidder with a cost of $802,500. And it's our recommendation to you that we approve that contract. You have a copy of the agreement and the other documents in your package in the amount of $800,000 to $500,000 for installation of grit removal equipment in the new facility. If you have questions, we have JUB here that can answer them better than I can.
Okay. Any questions? Well, I have one question. What is the life of this grit removal equipment? 20 years. 20 years, all right. Okay. That's
20
great.
years is good.
Yeah, better than I thought, so I'll take 20.
Better than 10.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion for this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-77, resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with Smith and Loveless Inc. for the purchase of grit removal equipment at the Tooele City Reclamation Facility.
All right, I'll second. All right, so we have a motion from Councilman McCall, a second from myself, Councilman Brady. We'll take it to vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hansen?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Item 9 is Resolution 2022-78, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with Huber Technology, Inc. for the purchase of course screening equipment at the Tooele City Water Reclamation Facility, presented by Paul Hansen.
Thank you. This is the second similar type of equipment that's required for the new facility. This equipment was similarly put out for public bids, and in this case, we actually had 4 submittals that came back in. This proposal, in talking to Mr. Grand Prix, it was actually the preferred technology, which was the most affordable, which is always good for the city to have. It's our recommendation, well, we found that Huber Technology was the lowest responsible bidder in the amount of $352,589. And it's our recommendation that we approve that contract with them in that amount for the purchase of the grit removal equipment for the new facility. Any
Correct.
questions?
Any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve Resolution 2022-78.
I'll second.
All right, motion from Councilman Hansen, a second from Councilwoman Manzione. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hansen?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Item 10 is Resolution 2022-79, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with Staker and Parsons Companies for the 2022 roadway maintenance project, Part 3, lightweight aggregate chip and seal, presented by Paul Hansen.
Thank you. This is the third time this year that we've brought to you roadway maintenance projects as we're looking at trying to improve our infrastructure. Earlier this summer, as part of a Part 2 project, the city did a similar lightweight aggregate chip seal, which is a more aggressive surface treatment than just a slurry seal. It has a much longer life.
The product turned out so favorable, and there's additional funds in the Road C project, that it's our recommendation that we put that money on the road to preserve roads rather than let it sit in the bank and not do us any good. Because of the value of the money that was remaining, we felt it appropriate to put it back out for bid rather than just try to do a change order. We received one bid from Staker and Parsons. They were the company that did the prior work for us under Part 2. And they submitted a bid of $780,648.60. Now, subsequent to this bid, we've actually worked with them to reduce that quantity down. Part of the project was to do 7th Street, but with schools now in session and other work ongoing with road improvements, we've chosen to take that out of the work and reduce the amount of award to $650,600. Should this fund be approved to Staker and Parsons in that amount, they would be prepared to do this within the next 2 weeks.
Great. Any
Was there that much money left in the account?
All right, any other questions?
Shannon says yes, so I'm okay. There's loads of money, right?
Not now.
The roads do look nice, though.
They do.
The ones that have,
Yeah, they turned out very well.
yeah. All right, I'll entertain a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve Resolution 2022-79, approving an agreement with Staker and Parson Companies for the 2022 roadway maintenance project, Part 3, lightweight aggregate chip seal.
We have a motion. Motion from Councilwoman Manzione, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione.
Aye.
Councilman Graff.
Aye.
Councilman Hanson.
Aye.
Councilman McCall.
Aye.
And Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0.
Thank you. Council will give notices of award to each of these tomorrow. Thank you.
Item 11 is Resolution 2022-80, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving and ratifying an agreement with CDC Restoration and Construction for the Pratt Aquatic Center floor resurfacing project, presented by Darwin Cook, the Parks and Recreation Director.
Council, to provide a little history on this, back in 2020, we received some CARE funds to fix some of the drain issues that were present at the pool from the previous, or from the original construction of the building. And CDC was the lowest responsible bidder at that time, and we also at the time, with part of that project, received some of those CARE funds on some of the areas, mainly the hallway and the ramp leading down to the change rooms, to add a epoxy, non-permeable, non-porous surface, mainly for the purpose of cleaning, to facilitate a better cleaning environment. The epoxy that has been applied is a that doesn't allow mold basically to grow. So it's kind of like sheetrock that you use in restrooms that is protected against mildew. So that's the product that we've been requesting them to put in. On another other project, we did have some work done by a contractor that actually painted the facility at this time too, and that parts of the floor began to fail. We attempted to do some warranty claims against it of some of those that they were able to fix. At some particular point, the contractor did ghost us. So we're at this point to where in both the boys' locker room and the girls' locker room, we had a significant amount of failure, which was causing a safety issue. We were having anywhere between 2 to 3 slips and falls a month in each one of those areas. So we decided this was a project that we wanted to put and request funds for. A couple weeks ago, you approved the budget for this project, for a capital project. The resolution that we're bringing before you today is actually a ratification due to the fact that our pool shutdown took place the last 2 weeks. And so this is a ratification of that contract with CDC to come in and have them fix these areas during that shutdown. We felt that it was a serious enough safety issue that we needed to get this fixed immediately. Moving forward, our 3-year plan with the pool that we started back in 2019 was to eventually resurface all of the floors with this product, other than the pool deck. This will complete everything other than the main entryway, which part of our 3-year plan is that in 2023 we'll seek the approval of those funds for that project. If you have any questions, gladly entertain those and hopefully answer those.
All right, any questions or comments?
I did fail to mention that the amount of the contract is $58,100, so.
Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2022-80, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving and ratifying agreement with CDC Restoration and Construction for the Pratt Aquatic Center floor resurfacing project.
All right, I'll second that. So we have a motion from Councilman Hanson and a second from myself, Councilman Brady. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Thanks, Darwin. Item 12 is Resolution 2022-81, a resolution of the Tooele City Council authorizing payment of fee in lieu of water rights conveyance for a new commercial development at 1000 North and 200 West, presented by Paul Hanson, the city engineer.
Thank you. This request is for a proposed development to be located at the northwest corner of 200 West and 1000 North, just south of the bowling alley there on the west side of the road. If the council will recall, back in October of 2021, a discussion item was brought to the council wherein the developer requested to be able to purchase water right credits in lieu of having to provide water rights from an outside source. And although there was not a formal action by the council, there was favorable support for the development, which will consist of a hotel, restaurant, and other commercial development. At that time, the council indicated that they would, however, not make any commitment until the developer submitted an actual application to the city. Since that time, the developer has been working diligently to acquire the property. They've been involved in the subdivision process to create not only this lot, but the seller has created off some other residential property. They've been working with their design team and their architect and staff on the layout of the site. We have site plans that we're in the process of reviewing right now. They've completed traffic studies, and we've had other developments pending that we've kind of waited to get their traffic studies to be able to pair it all together. The concern making sure that when this door opens, it can stay open and we don't kick ourselves for not having the traffic addressed fully. And all of these things have taken time, unfortunately. But they have been continually working with the city and active in moving forward this action. The reason this is brought to you tonight by resolution is following upon your direction from a year ago to bring it back for your formal vote, for them to be able to purchase up to 20 acre-feet of water, which would be based on actual anticipated demand. In 2021, the cost of the payment in lieu water rights was $15,000 an acre-foot. And as you're aware, on May 18th, 2022, the City Council by resolution increased that purchase price from $15,000 to $35,000 a foot, which was a significant jump, of course, that's no secret. You have been provided a copy of a letter that they delivered today. Each of you have that copy. When they are appealing to you to reduce the amount of that $35,000 fee to a lesser figure, based upon the fact that they have in actuality been working with the city and been diligent in pursuing that. The administration supports their request, and the reasons that we support that request for commercial development is that it will provide additional employment within the city, it will provide additional property tax, additional sales tax, and additional transient room tax, among other benefits. And perhaps one of the most important is places for people to stay. There's occasionally we have late nights at the city and early starts, and I've tried to find a hotel room in the city, and they're pretty tough to find at certain times of the year. So I think there's great benefit to the city for this type of a development. What we're doing is tonight is the administration is asking that we authorize and set the price of any future water for this development for the restaurant also and for the commercial, but not approve it formally until we receive an actual application for the restaurant and for the commercial. At that point, the cash would exchange hands, is what I'm saying. We wouldn't take 20 acre feet of water and let them just bank the water. We would only make that exchange when we have an application like the hotel right now. So that is our request, and it's for your discussion and consideration. I know the applicant is here. If you wish to hear from them, they're present and may wish to speak.
You gotta explain something to me. I lost the restaurant and the other thing, the water there, and we're going to make a commitment to the lower price today.
Well, that's their request. And the
Okay. But I
administration.
thought it was just for the hotel, but no.
Well, tonight's action would only be for the hotel.
Okay.
But the administration is asking if we could establish what that price would be for the other components of this specific development. They've requested that it be considered at whatever rate you set for the restaurant and for the other use. But the exchange of money would only happen when we get an actual permit in place. And the resolution has a whereas that was written into it that says that, you know, this offer is good for 6 months for the first application of the hotel, which we have every belief will be submitted within that time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, do the hotels within 6 months, the other two businesses, do we have a time frame on them or no?
Not in the resolution.
Not in the resolution, okay.
Nope, it's quite common with the city's applications. You put a condition for the first one, you certainly could. As a council, you can put conditions on it, you know, especially if you were to find it compelling to reduce the amount, but that's entirely in your discretion.
I guess my question is, and I support the initial amount for the hotel, but I worry about opening up a Pandora's box for potential other projects saying, hey, you know, you did it for them, and then we're binding ourselves to a future unknown, whatever X is, and let's say the costs go up and we as a council feel that we need to readdress the water issue, which we're hearing about in every single meeting. I'm a little uncomfortable binding ourselves to a price and then literally repeating where we are with this request in the future. And so, again, I understand, and I've read this letter, and I appreciate their position. I don't have an issue with the hotel with the 20 acre feet. But the only thing that I would be comfortable with is saying, hey, look, you know, for the future one, it's $35,000 because that's what it is for everyone. I understand this request, but in the future request, especially since we don't know that timeline, to me is a little dicey. It's just kind of my gut reaction.
Now, the other ones, if I'm not mistaken, it was more, wasn't the houses, because we went through the thing with the zoning because they wanted, we only wanted MR16.
Well, that's not
Those are
this
different.
though, it's next door to it.
Right, but what I'm saying, we wanted the apartments to be the same as the other one, that's MR16. Because originally they wanted them to be higher, and I think we talked about that.
I think that's a different
Yeah,
development.
I think that I could help you understand it, and if I have this wrong, tell me I'm wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. My understanding is the initial request that they made was they estimated up to 20 acre feet for this entire development, not the residential, the hotel, and either the proposed restaurant, fast food, whatever else is coming on that lot, up to the 20 acre feet. That is only the portion that we asked. So what we thought would be easier to do this evening is to say up to the 20 acre feet. If you will set a cost for whatever that rate will be tonight for the up to 20, they will not need the whole 20 for the hotel, but that we will just do the payment in lieu for whatever they need right now for the hotel when that application is made, and then when the other buildings come online, up to the 20 acre feet. If they bring in a car wash, no, I know they're not bringing in a car wash. But if they did, we would say it's only up to the 20 acre feet, and we don't want a car wash. But that is what we are requesting. We have also looked back in history to look back at how many other commercial developments requested the payment in lieu before the price was raised for the cost per acre foot. Our understanding from what we have looked at, this is it. There are no other commercial developments that asked for payment in lieu. There might be a residential, but no commercial. This would be the last time that we would bring this to you to say, hey, we would like you to look at this, at going back to that original cost.
I do regularly go to pre-development meeting, and when it became clear that we were probably going to increase the cost of the water, the staff was very careful in pre-development to say, hey, it's 15,000 right now, but it's, by the time you get something in, it's probably going to be more. So this, I remember this was before that time. So we had quite a conversation about it. We talked about the benefits of a hotel to the city. I mean, the tax, sales tax revenue alone. And when you have a hotel, it's really ideal to have a restaurant right next to the hotel for obvious reasons. We've all been to a hotel. So I think the fact that they were quick to follow up through after the pre-development and come to us and say, hey, would you even consider this? And at that point, we hadn't really started the conversation, the formal conversation about increasing the price. I kind of think they had no warning. So it's only fair to me that they would get that lower price still.
I agree.
So do I. I just had a question. Sorry.
I agree as well. All right. Does someone want to make a motion? And I think you want to specify the amount.
I was going to mention that we probably do want to specify the amount because the way it's written is to accommodate for the higher amount if council were to approve the higher amount.
Right.
So just for clarification, are we saying, it seems like there's two requests. It seems like there's the 20 acre feet, which I think Councilwoman Manzione talked about, which I agree with. But then there seems to be this loosey-goosey future possible use. Is that in excess of the 20 acres or just simply the 20?
Only up to 20.
Yeah, we think the
Yeah, you felt like I
20
did
should
at
cover
first,
all of it.
so.
Yeah.
Nothing
Okay.
over that.
Perfect, that makes it simple for
So
me.
the resolution
20 acre
would
feet
be
is
addressed in the resolution. It
Okay.
does say 20
It
acre
does
feet.
say
So if they
20,
need
yes.
more than that,
It's
There- it's
35,000.
it's
35,000.
35,000?
Yes, sir.
All right, I just want to be clear. All right.
Yes.
Perfect.
And again, they would only pay for what they actually use. So when the hotel formally comes in and we count rooms and uses and watch comparables, we'll only assess them what comparables would be, whatever that is. And we'll do that for each use.
So if they don't use, let's say they use 15 for their whole development, it kind of just goes away after that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
they can't use it anywhere
Yes.
else.
I think a condition that would be appropriate for you to put is it has to be on this property.
Yes, yes.
It cannot be used on any property other than the subject property we're talking about, I think would be appropriate.
Which it says in the resolution.
Right.
Right.
And would we also need to put something in there to say that if they did, if we authorize it up to 20 feet, 20 acre feet, and they only used 15 acre feet, that they can't sell that to nobody but the city?
Well, we would only allow them to do the payment for what they need. We would not allow them
Okay.
extra credit to bank.
Okay,
That is not in our interest to do that.
okay.
Can I make a motion?
Please do.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of Resolution 2022-81, a resolution of the Tooele City Council authorizing payment of a fee in lieu of water rights conveyance for a new commercial development at 1,000 North and 200 West at the price of $15,000 per acre foot, and specific to the whereases in the resolution that include up to 20 acre feet on this specific development.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilwoman Manzione, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. All right, item 13 is ordinance 2022-35, an ordinance of Tooele City adopting the 2022 Tooele City Wastewater Collection System Master Plan, presented by Paul Hansen, the city engineer.
Thank you. As the council recalls, 3 weeks ago, we presented to you in your 5:30 meeting a semi-detailed summary of the sanitary sewer master plan. Subsequent to that meeting, we've also made the similar presentation to the Planning Commission. They have made a favorable recommendation to you to adopt it, and we now bring it to you tonight to formally adopt. Should you adopt it tonight, we will instruct our consultant to finalize the document, add their stamp and signature to it, and then we will provide that to our outside financial consultant to begin looking at impact fees and other rates by the city.
It was riveting reading.
I think so.
Well,
Yeah,
It's been one of
when I
those
was
records.
trying to read it today and yesterday, I thought somebody's got to have the most boring job ever.
I'm with you.
I'll second that.
That was, and then some of it, it's like, holy cow, you got to be an engineer for
It's
this.
a skill. It's a developed skill, I will tell you that.
Taste.
All right, any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve ordinance 2022-35, an ordinance of Tooele City adopting the 2022 Tooele City Wastewater Collection System Master Plan.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Graff, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Ca-
Sorry.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzia?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Quick one.
Jumping the gun.
Passes 5-0. Item 14 is a minor subdivision request for the W&R minor subdivision by W&R Enterprises, LC, to subdivide approximately 8.6 acres located at the northeast corner of 400 East, 2400 North, into 6 commercial lots in the GC General Commercial Zoning District, presented by Jim Bolser, the Community Development Director.
Thank you. My apologies, council. You probably were hoping to be done with me for tonight, but I have 2 more for you. So, this is a non-residential development. It's a commercial subdivision. The subject property is fairly large. It's a strip of property along the north side of 2400 North to the east of 400 East. This is a strip of land that has been sitting unimproved in front of Lydiard's. For reference here, I've labeled Lydiard's for you, as well as outlined the subject property in red. The current zoning on the property is GC, as is the properties around it, with the exception of the south, where North Point Medical Plaza is, which is an industrial service zone. Very simply, this is a subdivision plat that would divide that long stretch of property into 6 lots for non-residential purposes. We have had various discussions with potential uses on these properties that would be very beneficial to our community, including at least one formal application that we already have in application for the most westerly lot against 400 East, excuse me. But before we can finalize all that, we've got to establish the lots. So this plat is before you this evening as a minor subdivision, as the rights-of-way are already dedicated surrounding it, and this is less than 10 lots, so it qualifies as a minor subdivision. Planning Commission has reviewed this and forwarded a unanimous positive recommendation by a 6-0 vote for your consideration this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions or comments?
This is the one we got a letter about, right? Did you receive, I think it didn't really apply. They were talking about abutting SR 36 and making sure we had the wide widths, but it doesn't really abut.
I believe that was actually for a conditional use permit going to the Planning
Oh,
Commission,
okay.
which is actually on the other side of the highway.
Okay, I'm confused.
We get a lot of emails, so it's hard to keep it straight. All right. Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the minor subdivision request for the W&R minor subdivision by W&R Enterprises, LC, to subdivide approximately 8.6 acres located on the northeast corner of 400 East, 2400 North, into 6 commercial lots in the GC General Commercial Zoning District.
I'll second.
And a motion from Councilman Hanson, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And Councilman Brady, I also vote aye. That passes 5-0. Item 15 is preliminary subdivision plan request for the Lexington Greens Lot 107 subdivision by Lex Townhomes LLC to subdivide 1.27 acres located at the northeast corner of 680 West, 1200 North into 18 townhome lots in the MR16 multifamily residential zoning district, presented by Jim Bolser.
Thank you. This is a part of the overall, if I can use the term loosely, master planned Lexington Greens development. As the council may recall, the multifamily portion, which is generally what's showing on your screen here, was subdivided into 8 master lots for the purpose of ownership to be brought back later for various development approvals. That is the step that's being proposed before you this evening for Lot 107, which is outlined in red in the approximate center of your screen to the west of Franks Drive. The zoning on the property is MR16, as are the properties surrounding it, and the entirety of the multifamily portion of the Lexington Greens development. Wow, this distorted badly. My apologies for this. So this is the, and it's actually cut off at the bottom as well. This is actually the PUD that was approved, just a layout of an assignment of dwelling units for the Lexington Greens multifamily portion. And you'll see, which is now in the lower left-hand side of the drawing, Lot 107, that long strip along the north side of the road. That is the property in question being proposed here. The PUD identifies 18 lots allowed, which is what's being proposed here as an 18-lot townhome development. This is the preliminary plan that is before you for consideration this evening. It identifies those 18 lots as well as common spaces and joint ownership spaces for the individual units. They are intended to be individually owned townhomes. Although they may be singularly owned initially, ultimately they're being platted for individual ownership. So that is the nature of this application. Again, the Planning Commission has reviewed this and forwarded a unanimous positive recommendation by a 6-0 vote, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions or comments? I will entertain a motion. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary subdivision plan request for the Lexington Greens Lot 107 subdivision by Lex Townhomes LLC to subdivide 1.27 acres located at the northeast corner of 680 West, 1200 North into 18 townhome lots in the MR16 multifamily residential zoning district.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
And Councilman Brady, I also vote aye. That passes 5-0.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Item 16 is the minutes from Wednesday, August 17th, City Council and RDA work meeting minutes, Wednesday, August 17th, City Council business meeting minutes. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion on the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, a motion from Councilman Hanson, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzione?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady. I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Item 17 is the invoices presented by Michelle Pitt.
Thank you. We have an invoice to Performance Ford in Lincoln Bountiful for 2019 Ford Ranger. This is for the police department. We're having a harder and harder time finding vehicles nowadays, so they're just very hard to come by. This one is for $37,582. And then we have a request from the Arts Council for their 2022-2023 funding, and it is for $131,000.
All right, any questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion for the invoices.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the invoices to be paid.
I'll second.
All right, a motion from Councilman McCall, motion from Councilman Graff, a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilwoman Manzio?
Aye.
Councilman Graff?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilman McCall?
Aye.
And Councilman Brady, I also vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, that passes 5-0. Item 18 is to adjourn, so we are adjourned.